Hi there, Kristin here. If you're watching the recording, welcome to my channel, From Chronic Fatigue to Chronic Abundance. This channel is dedicated to talking to you about the healing mindset, okay? The healing mindset is the one thing that helped me recover from severe chronic fatigue as a symptom 3 times, all right? I'm not saying it was in my head. I'm definitely not saying it's in your head, all right? In addition to the right mindset, I also needed the right doctors, the right blood work, the right supplements and treatments and all that other good stuff to treat the physical problems that I had. But mindset was the one thing that helps me heal every time, all right? I needed completely different plans to heal each time. So for me as one person to need multiple plans to heal from severe chronic fatigue, there's definitely not like a one size fits all like magic bullet plan out there, okay? If there was, we'd know what it was and everybody would be on it and we'd all be better by now, okay? I think it's pretty clear that to recover from severe chronic fatigue long term, we each are on a healing journey to discover what our body's unique needs are for health, okay? And to get from where we are to where we want to be. And the healing mindset lays the foundation for that healing journey. It gives us motivation. It gives us hope when things look hopeless. It keeps us going when things are really hard. Really importantly, it helps us save and generate a little bit more energy every day, okay? It helps us save energy from the really heavy emotions we can get stuck in. It helps us save energy from guilt, from feeling frustrated, from feeling like a victim. Those things, we're wasting energy when we stay stuck in those things. It's completely normal and healthy to feel those things from time to time, but the healing mindset teaches us how to take the messages that those heavy feelings are giving us, apply the learnings to our life, find solutions, and move on into those lighter emotions that are more energy giving, okay? So in that way, it helps our quality of life a little bit every day. It's not going to heal you completely, but it is going to really help you get to where you're going, which is to a healthier place, all right? So this is our weekly live Q&A where I am here to answer your questions. Anything having to do with living with severe chronic fatigue as a symptom is fair game. No question is too big or too small. I feel like I have a cat hair. My nose is bugging me. Halford's joining me. I don't know if you can see him. He's a black kitty and I'm wearing a black shirt. You can see him down here. There, I think I got the cat hair. No question is too big or too small, too weird or too funny or too personal. If you're comfortable asking the question here, I am almost likely to be completely comfortable addressing it, okay? Because, I'm here to help us talk through all of those parts of life that we struggle with, not just being at the doctor and figuring out what health issue we need. There's, 99% of life happens outside of those moments, as I know because I've been there. So we are here to support one another. The way this works is you can just pop your questions into the chat. I'll go through it in order. I love it when you guys get involved and start giving your own support to one another. So this isn't just about me. I'm not the only one with useful information to share. We all have something to say. And I love it when people get involved in the comments. So you're welcome to join in. Normally, I just go ahead and give a very long and detailed intro while I'm waiting for questions. For those people who are new to the channel, who just come across me, maybe this is our first video, it gives them a chance to catch up on what's what. But today, I'm thinking I'll do something a little bit different. I have a little something prepared to talk about while I'm waiting for your questions to start rolling in. So I have been reflecting a lot on how to discover what it is that we need in our healing journey, and then also how to discover what it is that we need within our mindsets, okay? So whenever we're living with severe chronic fatigue, there's a lot of events in our lives that tend to trigger massive emotional responses, okay? Something happens and we feel guilty. We'll feel immense guilt because we can't be there for someone in the way that we want to be or the way that we used to be. Or we feel guilty because people are putting in so much effort to help take care of us, or they have to go out of their way to come to us and spend time with us. There can be a lot of things that trigger guilt, for example. And we get stuck in that guilt because we're just taking that guilt at face value. We just get really stuck in the feeling of it and how awful it is. And oh my God, we make ourselves out to be bad people. And it can be like a real negative downward spiral, and we can waste a lot of our precious energy in that downward spiral. And what the healing mindset teaches us to do is it teaches us to say, oh, I'm feeling really guilty about this. Let's take a step back and let's ask ourselves, what does this really mean? What's really going on here? What is guilt really trying to tell me? Okay, because guilt isn't an end-all be-all thing that we're supposed to get into a downward spiral about. It's really there as a message to help us connect to what's going on inside, what's deeper, what's behind the guilt, what's triggering the guilt, because it's always deeper than the situation at hand. All right. So for example, what guilt is really doing, why guilt is really there, is guilt is there to self-soothe. It's there as a reminder that we're good people. All right. We don't feel guilty if we're self-absorbed and we expect everyone to be doing all this stuff for us and we expect to never have to do things for others. Okay. We feel guilty because we want to be there for other people. We feel guilty because we don't want to feel like a burden on someone else's life. Okay. It's a reminder that we care about the people in our lives. All right. And it's also an expression. It's also an expression of how much we care about them and how unable we feel to express it adequately. All right. We've developed ways of expressing how we care about other people. If you're familiar with the 5 love languages, we tend to express our love and care for other people in one of 5 ways, which is through acts of service. We like doing things for people. We like spending quality time. We carve out time for people to dedicate to them. We give people gifts. I forget what the other 2 off the top of my mind. But when we become severely ill with chronic fatigue, we are massively limited in how we are able to express our love for others. All right. And we fail to see guilt as a message that we care about them and feel inadequate. And we fail to look for other ways to express our gratitude and love and care for other people. All right. Because we can still do that. We can still let people know how much we care for them. We just have to be creative and be willing to find new ways to do that. And that's how we can alleviate the guilt in ourselves. That's how we can feel it and then use it as a trigger to say, okay, I need to find another way to express my care for this person. Because as much as I don't like it, even though I don't like that they have to go out of their way to come see me, even though I don't like that I can't do this thing for them, I accept the fact that this is the way where my life is right now. Oh, I forgot my microphone. I'm sorry if the audio is not as great today. But you have to accept the fact that that's the way it is. And you have to accept the fact that if you want to continue showing your appreciation and gratitude for them, you've got to find a new way. All right. And when we do that, that's when we open ourselves up to creativity and to possibility. That's when we say, okay, I really wish that I could go do that thing for them that I normally do, but I can't get out of bed today. So instead, I'm just going to send them a text message that says, hey, thinking about you. I miss seeing you when I did this thing for you. I appreciate you and your smiling face. And I remember this one time we did XYZ and it was great. Like receiving a text message like that can make someone's day, right? And it's something, as long as you're able to be on your phone and compose a message like that, as long as you have that kind of energy, as long as it's within your energy envelope, that's a really great way to express your care for them, your gratitude for them. And it can be a great way to alleviate that guilt that you're feeling, okay? And instead of sitting there feeling guilty about it, you're out of that and you're feeling gratitude for that person, all right? And then if they get back to you with a nice message, which maybe they will, maybe they won't, you've created, a little more gratitude, not just in your life, but also in someone else's life. So that's how the healing mindset helps shape our response to the world, how it helps us save a little bit of energy and helps us create a little bit more energy. Because gratitude, feeling gratitude is inherently an energizing, awakening, alive state of being, whereas feeling in guilt is definitely a closed off, sluggish, like unpleasant place to be, all right? So the healing mindset gets us into that higher quality of life faster than anything else and helps motivate us and keep us going on our healing journeys. Waiting for your questions in the chat box over here. So, another way to frame that is that guilt is a sensation we feel when we have a core need that's being unmet, when we have the core need of expression of care and concern going unmet, we feel guilt, okay? And it's important for us to reframe it that way, because we can start to look at other heavy negative emotions and sensations in our life, and we can start asking, what's really going on here? What's really going on deeper? I don't have to identify with this feeling of guilt or this other heavy feeling that's going on. I can look at it as a message and look for the underlying need. All right. If you have a need to self-express, then you need to go fulfill that. You need to figure out another way to express how much you care about that person and maintain that connection with them. And what happens whenever we find core needs is that there's actually a whole system. I've actually developed a framework around keeping our core needs met and keeping our core needs protected from threats, okay? So what happens is we can be triggered into feeling really stressed very often when we're severely ill, because there's many things that we can't do for ourselves. We're not able to meet our own needs the way that we've grown accustomed to in our healthy lives, right? Things need to change. Like a core need of just going to the bathroom or feeding ourselves a meal can create some stress in our bodies, because it can be very difficult for us to do those basic things sometimes, or for some of us all the time, right? There's definitely some of us here who need a caregiver full time. We can't meet that need ourselves. But as long as we have that caregiver there, we know someone we can trust who's there for us for the long term. It doesn't have to produce stress if we know that need is going to be met somehow, okay? It's when we're living alone and things keep getting worse and worse and worse. And, we reach those points where we're not sure if we can meet our own needs of going to the bathroom and feeding ourselves, that we really begin to get stressed, right? And that's when we need to face the stress as a message. The stress itself isn't a problem. Just like these other emotions, stress is a message. And we need to evaluate that message is telling us, and we need to do something about it. So if our health is deteriorating to the point where we don't feel like we can consistently meet our need of going to the bathroom and feeding ourselves, the best thing to do is to figure out a plan to get those needs met, and getting creative in doing so. Whether that's moving back in with family, finding a friend who's willing to take care of us, applying for outside resources and funding and programs, whatever that looks like. And yes, it can be draining and a little bit stressful to make these arrangements for ourselves, especially if we're trying to apply for some sort of like government funding. But we have to look at the trade-off. I mean, is it worth doing nothing and reserving that little bit of energy in the short term when we're probably sacrificing our well-being long term by not being able to go to the bathroom and feed ourselves? Whereas, yeah, it's really tiring and exhausting and frustrating and all those things right now to figure out this plan. But in the long term, you're going to be keeping yourself, you're going to be keeping those needs met and keeping yourself better long term. Like, one way to look at it is, a year from today, is it going to be better for me to do nothing and to deal with this stress and perhaps continue to degrade to the point where I can't feed myself? Or is it better to go through this stress now, and a year from now be in a place where those needs are continuously being met? And is it worth that energy expenditure? And sometimes the answer is yes, and sometimes it's no, and sometimes it's not yet, right? But treating stress as a message helps us eliminate the feeling of stress and turn that stress energy into like active energy to go make a plan and go execute on that. And that's really important when you're living with severe chronic fatigue, because our energy is so limited as it is. Like, we don't have energy to waste on stress. Like, we can't be stressing and trying to figure out a plan for some of these things at the same time. Like, we get to do one. We get to stress out about it, or we get to do something about it. So having those tools on hand to transform from stress into a place of being able to use that energy somewhere else is really, really helpful. Because, I mean, how many of us, even when we have no energy to do anything, how often do we wear ourselves out with emotions? How often are we wearing ourselves out stressing about things? When we can take that little bit of energy it takes and turn it into something positive, and we can start doing that every day, just a little bit every day, it can really start to accumulate over time. Because those little tiny actions, even if you're just taking little tiny actions towards your health every day, over time, those will accumulate. And it will start to make a difference in your life. I'm not saying it'll cure everything, but it does make a difference. I can tell you that from experience. So, hi guys, Kristin here. Who's on the call? I'd love to know who's here. I can see, numbers of people, but I can't see the names of anyone who's joined until you announce yourselves in the live chat. You're anonymous until you reveal yourselves. So I've been talking about core needs. Hi, Jamie. Thanks for saying hi. So I've been thinking a lot about core needs and talking about that today and their relation to stress because, hi, Nika, welcome. Because I have been developing a framework to help people work through their stress, to understand the underlying core needs that are happening in the body, the things that are being unmet or the core needs that are being threatened, and then a framework on how to approach meeting those core needs. Because when you feel confident that you can meet your core needs and you can protect them from outside threats, we experience a lot less stress in our lives. And I'd love to talk more about that, but if you guys have questions about it, I would be happier answering questions than just volunteering information. So this framework looks like this. It's pretty basic, all right? At the middle here are your core needs. My handwriting is a little messy, so sorry if you can't read that, but it says core needs. The core needs are the things that we need to feel healthy, happy, and whole long-term, all right? And whenever you're living with any sort of disease, any sort of illness long-term like this, that healthy factor is always going to be unmet until we find out what we need to heal. So there's always going to be some amount of our core needs going unmet when we're unhealthy. So it's really important to keep the other ones happy and whole as met and as full as we can. So in order to protect our core needs and to prevent ourselves from getting stressed about having unmet or threatened core needs, we first need to have, I don't know why I'm doing this. I guess I'm doing it for the visual learners out there, but this is also how I think about it. The first thing we need around our core needs is awareness and knowledge. We need to be aware of our core needs. We need to be aware of the emotions that come up when our core needs are unmet or threatened, and we need to have knowledge of what those messages mean and how to go about, like how to actually meet those needs. Okay, so this is where I was talking about, like, if you have a core need of expressing the love and care you have for another person, we need awareness of this feeling of guilt. And we need knowledge that guilt is just a message of, I feel unable to adequately express my care for this person right now in this situation because I'm feeling bad about something. So once we have that awareness and knowledge around guilt of what it is and what it really means for us, then we can start asking ourselves other questions, okay? We can start asking how to meet that core need in one of two ways. And I'm writing them down here. So the two ways we meet our core needs is, one is to give them to ourselves, all right? That says give to ourselves. That G doesn't look like a G, but it's a G. And the other way to meet our core needs is to receive them from others, okay? Guilt's a little bit of both. We need to give ourselves some compassion when we're feeling guilt. We need to give ourselves the space to think creatively about how to express our care for other people when we're so ill. And then we need to give ourselves the time and energy to actually do that, to express that to someone else. And on the converse, we really need someone to receive our expression of care and concern. We need someone on the receiving end of that, and we need them to be open to it. We need them to be a little flexible and receptive and patient with us while we're going through this period of ill health and learning how to express gratitude in new ways. And once we understand how to give these things to ourselves and how we need to receive them from others, the last protective outer layer is boundaries. All right. Boundaries protects everything and keeps it all in place and keeps our needs met. And helps us feel safe even when our needs are being threatened, because boundaries are how we protect our core needs. And boundaries are things we give to ourselves. Like a boundary would be saying, okay, within myself, every time I feel guilt, I commit to not getting wrapped up in the guilt and not going into that guilt spiral. I commit to myself to see the guilt and see it as a message and look for the underlying message in that guilt. And I commit to myself to learning new ways to express my care and gratitude for those around me to help alleviate that guilt. Boundaries with other people would be communicating to them like, hey, look, I know I used to do this thing for you all the time, but I can't do that anymore. I really need you to understand that I can't, and I need you to know that I really miss it. I feel really bad about not being able to do that anymore. And you need them to be comfortable and okay with where you're at and to communicate openly with you if they have any other expectations that aren't being met, to avoid future guilt and future issues. So that framework is really there and it's in place to help you think about these emotions that are coming up and to step back from them and say, what's really happening? What do I really need? What's my core need that's being unmet right now? And then thinking about ways, being aware of that and being knowledgeable of it. And then thinking about how to give it to yourself and how you need to receive this from others. And then putting boundaries in place with yourself and with others to actually keep those core needs met, to keep yourself out of the stress response and to keep yourself feeling more happy and whole. On the whole. So in place of my long-winded intro, that is what I have to share with you guys today. I would love to dive into some questions. That's always my favorite, second favorite part. Second favorite part is answering your questions. My favorite part is when you guys are really active in the chats and talking to each other, because I love to see that little bit of community happen, because we all need more community and support and closeness from people who understand what we're going through, right? That was one thing I never really had. I never had an online community of people I felt a part of, that I connected to, that understood where I was at. So I want that for you guys. So I am just waiting for your questions. You can pop them into the live chat over here at any time. The sooner is better. All right. If Anna's watching, Anna, I still owe you those edited meditation videos. I need like 2 hours to sit down and edit everything and then get it all posted, like reposted as its own like playlist with just the meditation parts of the videos in there. And I've really been struggling to find 2 hours to do that with my new work schedule. But I haven't forgotten. Not forgotten. Is David Graham on? David, you had a question for me on my last video, on last week's live Q&A. You had asked something, and I'd be happy to talk about that. I wanted to talk about it on the next live Q&A because it might be good for everyone to hear about it. We can get into more of a conversation about addictive behaviors instead of just leaving it in the comments there just for you to see. I'd rather that be more exposed, but I would like to wait until you're here so you can be part of that conversation. So if you're here, say holler. Jamie, Nika, how are you guys doing? What's up? What's new? What's good? What are you struggling with? Gosh. I mean, I have a good idea of what you're struggling with, but anything new? Anything going well? I always struggle to keep talking when there's no questions. I could show you a painting that's in the background here. I love working from home because I can wear my sweatpants all the time. This is a cool little painting that my boyfriend got for me almost a year ago, actually 10 months ago, I guess at this point. It was pretty cool. He said when he saw it, he was on vacation with a bunch of dudes. And when he saw it in a market, he said it reminded him of me because of the way I would look at him. Different color eye though. My eyes are not that color. My eyes are more like blue-gray. But yeah, so I like this painting. I like that it's in the background. I didn't even mean for it to be there. Hello. Oh, yeah. All right, Raph. Talking to a cute Brussels scientist. Good for you. Happy for you. Don't let me hold you up. You go for it. It's the kind of community and personal interaction you need, so go for it. I know I've talked to you guys about my Aura ring before. It's a really high-tech sleep tracking device. It's this ring. If you're not familiar with it, it's pretty cool. You can see like the sensors inside of it. There's a motherboard in there. You can see how the sensors like stick out a little bit on the inside of it. It's very high-tech. So it's great because it tracks my sleep. It tracks what phase of sleep I'm in, whether I'm in deep sleep, light sleep, REM sleep, or if I'm awake at night. It tracks how long. It does everything automatically. I don't have to enter any data in. It tracks my heart rate, my resting heart rate. It tracks my heart rate variability, which is a good indicator of stress levels. And it tracks all my activity, and then it tells me like when is a good time to physically exert myself and go hard and when it's good to rest. And because it tracks HRV, it would actually be very good for helping people like you who are living with severe chronic fatigue know when you're having a good day versus a worse day, based on HRV, which a lot of people actually with ME/CFS use heart rate variability and real-time heart rate readings to help manage their energy envelope. But this thing is helping me a ton. Like I'm able to see my sleep patterns. Like I was having a pattern of being awake, like sleeping, but like waking up a lot between like midnight and 2 a.m., which is a weird time to be waking up. It's very uncommon. But by looking at that trend data over time, I was able to realize my circadian rhythm's out of whack. I supplemented with melatonin strategically, and bam, my sleep's better, and I feel so good. I feel better than I have since last year, since like last December, like 2 months ago, because my sleep has been messed up basically since New Year's. I spent 2 days staying up until 3 or 4 a.m. in a row, and it just completely threw my circadian rhythm. It just completely demolished it, and I had to reestablish it with melatonin. And once I did, like my sleep has just been great the past few nights. I feel so good. Let's see. Hi, Katie. Hello. Welcome. All right. Mika, was I ever so bad? Were you ever that bad that I wouldn't heal and would depend on others for the rest of my life? That is my fear right now. Yeah, I absolutely had that fear that things would get so bad that I would never be able to work again. I would never be able to financially support myself. I was afraid that things would get so bad that I wouldn't be able to feed myself or go to the bathroom on my own. Yeah, I definitely had that fear. I was never to the point where I completely relied on people to do basics for me. I was always able to feed myself, to go to the bathroom myself. I was always able to bathe myself, even if that meant bathing once a week. Like I just wouldn't bathe. But yeah, I absolutely had that fear, especially the first time I got ill before I had ever healed, before I discovered anything about the healing mindset or my inner world. I probably had about a year and a half of wondering if that was going to be the rest of my life and being afraid of what you just talked about. Yeah, especially the weeks where resting doesn't seem to help. Raf says, yeah, I mean, unrefreshing sleep, unrefreshing rest is a symptom, is a core symptom of ME/CFS, if that's what you have. So that's definitely a big part of it. And what I can say to that fear and living with that fear is that focusing on that fear too much doesn't get you anywhere. Focusing on that kind of fear leads you into depression. It leads you into suicidal thoughts. It leads you into thoughts of like, why am I doing this? Why would I keep going if this is going to be the rest of my life? Why would I keep going if I'm going to be incapable of taking care of myself? Like, it doesn't help you. It's okay to have that thought, and it's okay to know that that thought is there, and it's okay to let that thought exist, but we can't focus on it because it doesn't take us any place good. Focusing on that thought does nothing to make us healthier, right? If anything, we need to take that fear and transmute that energy into, oh shit, okay, I really need to work. Because if we have the energy to sit there for an hour feeling afraid of this and freaking out about it, we have the ability to save ourselves that hour of freaking out, and we can funnel that into 10 minutes of work. All right. I'm not going to say like an hour of being afraid of something and freaking out about something is the same as an hour of doing work. It's not. But I would say an hour of freaking out, being afraid of this, can be turned into 10 minutes of doing something about it instead. All right. And that 10 minutes looking for the doctor you need, organizing your supplements, trying a new method or whatever, doing some research, whatever it is, like that's going to be better for you in the long term than spending an hour freaking out about this and focusing on that. Like, we have the ability to choose where we focus our time and attention and energy and thoughts and feelings. And we have to practice it at focusing our energy in other places than fear, but we can do it. And it's absolutely worth the effort to learn how to do that. All right, Catherine asked, did I struggle putting all my faith into a doctor for my treatments? So no, I didn't struggle, but that's because I never put all my faith into one doctor. I never looked at one person and said, you're going to heal me, because I knew that was very unlikely. I also knew that, I've worked with so many people over the years. There's been a lot of people who helped me through this much of my journey, and they were crucial and amazing and great. I'm so grateful to have had them for that part of my journey, but that's all they got me through. All right. And then as soon as they weren't helping me anymore, as soon as I'd gotten out of them when I felt like I was going to get out of them, it's easy to move on because I'm not putting my faith into one person. I was never, very, very early on, before I really had answers to this, I talked about how I'd seen like specialist after specialist here in Philadelphia. They all did all the blood work, and they all said I was completely fine and found nothing. And at that time I was putting my faith in them, and it was devastating when they would look at me and say, you're fine. There's nothing wrong with you. You need to sleep more and stress less and blah, blah, blah. That was crushing when I put my faith in them to help me, and they didn't. At that point, I learned to stop putting my faith in them and instead to approach doctors as a possibility for helping me heal. But when I went to work with people, I also allowed there to exist a strong possibility that maybe you can't help me. Maybe you're not the right person. And when you can allow yourself to confront the fact that maybe this isn't the right person, maybe they can't help me, but maybe they also can, allow those real possibilities to exist. It put me into a mental state of being able to openly assess, are they right or not? Instead of just throwing myself into whatever they said blindly based on faith, I made them earn my trust first. I wouldn't just blindly commit to anything anyone said. I wanted to ask questions, and I wanted to understand why, and I wanted to understand what I could expect out of this. I wanted to understand the timeline across which I needed to evaluate this. Like if you're asking me to do something, but you're telling me I'm going to need to wait 6 months before I see something, I need to know that before I start, right? And if I do see, and if things do go well, what can I expect to see? What will change? To what degree can I expect to change? If things go wrong, how can I expect this to go wrong, and what can I be looking out for so I can catch it early on if it's going wrong? Sometimes you'll feel worse before you feel better. I need to know if I'm going to feel worse, how should I feel worse? And what do I know to endure versus when do I know to stop, right? Like I need to know all of these things before I commit to something somebody tells me to do, because I'm not putting my faith in them. I'm not. I'm evaluating them, and I'm evaluating their recommendations and suggestions and moving forward based on their reasoning. I'm also not putting faith in people. I'm working with people who have healed others, who have healed themselves, who've gone through this before, who have a really positive track record that impresses me. What else do I want to say about this? Like, I know where you're coming from, and I want to say that it's not about faith. I didn't work with anybody based on faith. I worked with people based on their track record, and I work with them based on how their existing work resonated with me. Like, you know, almost everyone has like blog posts online, and like, you know, their like the mindset that they use, the approach they use, the methods that they use online. You can learn about them through those things. And I only worked with people who seemed to really resonate with me, who had the results I was looking for, and who clearly demonstrated an understanding of me and my health issues. Those were the people I worked with, and it didn't require faith. You know, I have a ton of trust in the doctor that I have now. And when he asked me to do something, I don't ask as many questions. I am much more likely to just say, okay, what's in it for me? How long is it going to take? How much is it going to cost? And say yes or no based on that. But that's not faith. That's built on years of established trust and results, right? And like I said before, like there are people who really, really helped me for very short periods of time with very short portions of my journey. And then I felt like I wasn't getting anything else out of them. And I let that be okay. And I stopped working with them. I stopped putting my time and energy and money into them. And I went looking for the next person to help me through the next phase of my journey. And that strategy worked really well for me. Not looking to any one person, not having to trust them, not having to put faith into them, but having people earn my trust and earn my time and my money. Once I started to do that, it was still very slow. It still took me years to find the right people, but it got me to where I needed to be. It was a successful strategy, even if it took a lot of time. Yeah, you're welcome, Nika. Oh man, Rav, you once read that people who are in a self-help group have less chances to recover from CFS. I'm not surprised. I have a lot of thoughts and opinions about that. And I would say that's because 99% of all of the self-help groups having to do with ME/CFS that I've seen are filled with victim mentality. They're filled with people dwelling on the heavy emotions. They are spent vilifying people who have gotten better and are trying to share their message of how they've gotten better. In short, the ME/CFS groups are really, really negative places. They're the places where you see, well, if you got better, then you were never sick in the first place. And my doctor says there's no cure for this, so we can never get better. Like they really consistently focus in on what's wrong. And they really almost, I want to say, it feels like to me that they're putting on blinders as to say like, well, I have to trust the doctors. The doctors say I can never do anything. I'll be sick forever. There's nothing I can do. It's not worth trying. I can't listen to anyone or anything. I'm not willing to try anyone or anything. And I want to sit here and I want to complain, and I'm going to be sick, and it's going to suck, and that's my life. And they live in this just really negative place. And when I was healing, like I saw that negativity and it just scared me away. I had to run away from it. Like I definitely spent time trying to get in there and find positive places and find some of the good information. But for the most part, it's the opposite of the healing mindset. It's a really ill mindset. I feel like a lot of those self-help groups for ME/CFS get into and stay into. And I'm not surprised if research shows that leads people to heal a lot less often, because there just aren't many positive places on the internet for people with ME/CFS. They just don't exist. So that was half rant, but that's my take on that. I think in general, the opposite's shown. When people have a loving, supportive community of like-minded people who understand them and they learn to talk about things in a supportive, helpful way, that absolutely helps people get through life easier and healthier and all those good kind of things. That's my take on it. Yeah, you know what, Jamie? I love the way you put that. They're self-perpetuating sickness addicts. They do act as if they're addicted to this idea of being ill, which much like an addiction, it's not something you want to do. You don't want to be ill. You don't want to keep yourself ill. And yet something is compelling you into this behavior that is self-harming. It's self-harming to believe that you're always going to be ill and that you should never try anything to feel better, right? It's self-harming to live in this victim mentality place of this isn't fair. I think it's healthy and healing to be like, you know what, this isn't fair, but the reality is I'm here. I'm going to make the best out of this situation that I can. I'm going to increase my quality of life as much as I can while I'm still sick. Okay. Even though there's limitations on how much better it's going to get from mindset, you can still make improvements. And I think it's always worth it to try to find what your body needs to feel better. Oh my God. Yeah. Victim Olympics, Raf. That is an interesting term for it. Making photos of how skinny they are and almost bragging how bad they have it. Yeah. It's like, yeah, I have it worse than you. I'm worse off than you are, as if there's some sort of pride to be had in that. It's kind of like, people who don't have severe health issues, people who don't sleep, bragging about how little sleep they got. Like, are you really proud of getting only 2 or 3 hours of sleep last night? That's not a good thing for you. Like, you're shortening your lifespan. You're making yourself way more at risk for diseases and illnesses. You're not feeling good. You can't be happy when you're that sleep deprived. Like, your body doesn't produce serotonin and dopamine in enough quantities, et cetera, et cetera. So it's crazy. Yeah, Jeannie, power to you. You're here because you take advice from people who have recovered, but you don't care for advice from people who are still sick. Jamie, you've hit the nail on the head. I think what Catherine was talking about too is like, why does this relate to that? Yeah, because it has to do with advice. Like, Jamie's not going to take advice from someone who hasn't healed, right? Like, if you're going to build a house, you're not going to take advice on how to build a house from someone who's never built a house before. You're going to go find someone who's built a bunch of houses and ask them for advice. And it's the same like when I was choosing doctors, I didn't just go to someone because they were an endo or because of whatever. Like, I went to them because they had helped other people like me heal, right? I went to them because before I even saw them, they'd established through their websites and their web presence that they believe me. They believe people like me. I know I don't have to justify my health issues to them. I know that I'll go in and be listened to. So it's about qualifying where you're going to get advice and who you're going to work with one-on-one as a doctor. Like, you want people who've gotten the results you're after. You don't want to work with someone who's never done this before. And even if that person has only healed themselves, I think they still have worthy, valid advice to share, hence why I'm here. And because they've done it before. Even someone who has built one house before is still going to have way better advice for you than someone who has built 0 houses if you're building a house. So what else is going on, guys? What else is up? What else have you been reading, thinking about? Stories to share. Let's see. Catherine, I always enjoy your questions. You have you ask questions that don't normally get asked on this channel, so you're bringing like a new perspective, and you get me talking about new things in different ways. So like, I really appreciate it when you hop on. I just wanted to say that. Let's see. All right, so we're at like 45 minutes. I'll give it a few more minutes for some more questions. Would love to answer more questions. I would love to take this another 15 minutes, but questions have been slow today. So let's see. Oh, Jamie's reading Courage to be Disliked. All right, I don't even know what that book is, but I love the title. It sounds like a book for people pleasers, people who don't like to be disliked, who work very hard to not be disliked, and who will kind of sacrifice themselves and their happiness in order to make other people happy, and how to, it sounds like the book talks about how to stop doing that. Is that accurate? Let's see. Oh, here we go. The title of the book, The Courage to be Disliked, the Japanese phenomenon that shows you how to change your life and achieve real happiness. Because yes, making other people happy and being liked by everybody makes nobody happy. It makes everybody happy but you. It sounds really cool. What are you getting out of it, Jamie? Yeah, bingo, he says. What are you getting out of it so far? What's your big takeaway from Courage to be Disliked? So that's really important stuff. I mean, it's something I've had to work on a lot, even since I recovered. Not being a people pleaser is something I've had to work really hard at, and I still have to work at sometimes. Jamie, you're using it to help you control self-pressure. Oh, that's great. So it's helping you, like, it sounds like it's helping you change how you talk to yourself, changing your self-relationship, maybe changing some of like your inner world, especially in your job, helping control the type of self-pressure you put on. Absolutely. That's really, really important to generate more of that self-acceptance at work, like to realize that you are valuable and worthy and deserving to be there, even if you aren't perfect, and finding that self-acceptance and self-respect and self-worthiness and carrying that around with you, because then your work stops being a reflection of you, or stops being part of your self-worth, and your work can just be your work. And it decreases stress dramatically when we can stop identifying with the work that we do, if that's something that's happening to you. Because I know that I went through that when I put a lot of pressure on myself. I realized it was because I was trying to make up for a lack of self-worthiness, self-acceptance, all that good stuff. And once I developed that within myself, I found that I work just as hard and I still have the same standards for work, but the way I feel about my work is so much less pressure when I carry my own self-acceptance into my work, instead of looking for like self-acceptance and worthiness and approval from my work. All right, Catherine says she guesses faith was the wrong word. She seems to have trust issues with doctors, even if they do have a good track record. I think that's healthy, Catherine. I think you should have a hard time trusting somebody until they've personally helped you, because there are doctors out there that can have helped lots of other people, but it doesn't mean that they're the right person for you. It doesn't mean that they have the exact right skill set to help you get better. So I would go in with the mindset every time of like, all right, this doctor has enough of a track record for me to spend my time and money coming to see him for 1 or 2 visits or 5 visits or whatever, you commit yourself to. But he's not getting my trust beyond that until I see how he is with me personally. I'm not going to trust him until, I keep saying he, we'll say she now. I'm not going to trust this doctor until she listens to me without challenging me. I'm not gonna trust her until it's clear that she just believes me by default. I'm not gonna trust her until it's clear that she's doing a lot of thorough blood work and that she's recommending treatments to me in a way where she's educating me on the pros and the cons and the risks and the costs and the timelines. I'm not gonna trust her until she has been shown to give me time to answer my questions and to care about my questions and to know that I need to be on board with her recommendations. I'm not going to trust her until I've tried a few things and they've worked for me or they haven't worked and we've had some communication about that. Like, I think that is great and smart and awesome for you. What you do need to do is you do need to commit to that doctor at some level, even if you don't have trust in them. You need to say, I don't trust them, but I'm going to give them a chance. For 1 appointment or 3 appointments or 5 appointments or whatever feels right for you, depending on what their process is like and what they explain and, constraints and all that kind of stuff. If you're not going to be willing to commit to them, to give them a chance, then you're wasting your time and your money, because you need some level of commitment and some level of time with them to know how well they're helping you. Because with severe chronic health issues like this, I mean, stuff doesn't get cleared up in one visit, you know? It usually takes like 3 to 5 visits or more to really work through something. So you need to, even if you don't trust them, you can know that you don't trust them and still commit yourself to giving them a chance. And I think that, I think that's something that's helped me. I think it helps my mindset because it helps avoid major disappointment because you're not putting all your eggs in one basket. It also keeps you on your toes. It keeps you asking questions. It keeps you looking for someone who communicates openly with you, who doesn't dismiss you, right? Who believes you by default. And I think that's a good state of mind to be in when so many doctors can't help us. So I think you're in a good place, even if it doesn't feel that great. Maybe you want to have that kind of trust in somebody, but that kind of trust, when we have health issues like we do, comes after lots of time and lots of results. No, I never saw a neurologist. I've never had a CT and MRI, although I would have loved to. Yeah, I mean, there isn't anything definitive in CT scans or MRI scans yet. Like, it's not like MS where they found that telltale signal in the MRI machine. It isn't that clear cut. CT and MRIs are not part of the diagnostic criteria right now for ME/CFS from anyone that I'm aware of. So they can look, maybe they'll find some things, but it wouldn't be ME/CFS. Oh, Raph, my heart goes out to you. Today you had to struggle to sit up straight. You want to lie down more, but you're scared to decondition. You were bedridden before for 27 months. That's a really hard place to be because you need to avoid crashes. But I understand the fear of deconditioning. It's a really, really hard place to be. I mean, how much did I lay down on average a day? I mean, as much as possible. I mean, I would have like my head propped up. I would say there was probably several hours a day for like, let me think about this, for like a year and a half straight at my worst. I would probably be lying down flat. Like, I'd probably be sleeping 8 to 10 hours a day. So lying down flat 8 to 10 hours a day, just sleeping at night. And then I'd probably sleep flat for another 2 to 3 hours a day. So maybe that's like 10 to 13 hours a day lying flat. And then for the vast majority of the rest of the day, I was lying down, but I'd have like my head propped up in a pillow. Like, I wasn't holding myself upright. I wasn't sitting upright like I'm sitting in a chair. I would have been like leaning back on something with pillows, or like the chair, like the armrest of the couch or something, holding me up. So I wasn't using my muscles, but I would be upright enough to, do whatever. And that would be like pretty much the rest of the day, except for when I had to get up to eat or get up to go to the bathroom or whatever. So about a year, I would say about a year and a half of that, with very occasional pushes to do more. Catherine, she started her treatment because you have Lyme's disease, right? You were diagnosed with Lyme's. You're at the part where it's getting worse before you get better. And it is a struggle to keep having the strength to trust that you are doing the right thing. I gotcha. That is a really hard place to be. And that's where your commitment comes into play. That's where you say, all right, I've talked to the doctor. They warned me about how things are going to get worse before they get better. And I am here. And yes, it's scary to have things be worse. And yes, I don't know 100% if this is what I need. I don't know 100% if this is going to work, but I've committed myself to this plan of action for right now. I've committed myself to 3 months of this. There's like a 95% success rate after 3 months, or, I'm just pulling numbers out of the air for an example here, but, and if I'm still feeling like this at that time, that's when I'll pull the plug. But until then, you've got to be like, I've committed myself to this course of action. So as scary as it is, unless I have evidence to think that this is the wrong path, I've just committed to be on it. I'm going to see it through. Maybe I'll find what I needed to work. Maybe I'll just find something that didn't work for me. I don't know, but I've committed myself to finding out. either way. And that's what you've got to like lean into when you're in the middle of a course of action and things are going as expected, which is worse. And you're not sure what to do. It's lean into that commitment and know when, know the boundaries you set in advance. Like, how bad did things get before I call it quits? Or like, how long do I do this before I call it quits? But don't renegotiate that when you're when things are worse than they were before, because now's not the time to be renegotiating those boundaries. You just got to like hold to it and trust the process. And you're either going to learn that this works or you're going to learn this doesn't work for you. I wish I had a better, happier answer for you, but that's just how this works when you have really severe, poorly understood health issues like this. Even with Lyme's disease, there's a lot of misinformation out there. There's a lot, we're still learning about Lyme's disease. Like, there are still many, many doctors out there that deny that chronic Lyme's disease is a thing. Like, after the initial recovery, many doctors deny that the infection can still persist in the body and still present itself later on. And that it can continue to give symptoms. But there are so many patients who live with chronic Lyme's, and there's actually new research out there proving that it does exist. But a lot of that just isn't, many doctors aren't aware of that yet. It's not well communicated yet. So like, yeah, it's a hard place to be because Lyme's disease is still poorly understood. Raf says, be careful with medications that make you worse on the pretense that it needs to get worse to get better. That's how he got bedridden in the first place. Yes, Raf is correct. I mean, that's the other side of like, okay, I'm committing to this process. I know it's going to make me feel worse before it makes me feel better. And either this is going to help me or it's not, right? And that's the flip side of, oh shit, is this making me worse? And yeah, there's no real cut and dry advice I have for this, because I've been there. I've been on things that made me feel worse before they made me feel better, but they did make me feel better. And I've been on things that made me feel worse and worse. And I finally had to say to my doctor, like, I know you say this is part of the plan for this treatment, but I'm done. Like, I need to stop doing this, because things feel too bad. And but that's where like setting up those boundaries for yourself in advance is really important. You need to know like, okay, how bad is really too bad for me to stop this treatment experiment, versus how strong is my commitment to continuing on this course of action, right? And it's a call that no one can make for you except for yourself. No one should be making that call except for you. You need to know when to call it quits versus when to keep going. With Lyme's disease, the course of treatment, if you're on antibiotics, like I'm assuming you are, that stuff is pretty well understood. And when it comes to Lyme's disease treatment, you could do some research into how well your current symptoms match the symptoms of other people who've gone through this course of treatment and who've gotten worse before they got better. And if your case really seems to be an outlier, really exceptional, then it's definitely worth talking to your doctor about this again and saying, look, this seems way worse than it should be. I don't think this is working. What are my other options? And then getting educated before making a decision as to what else to do. But it's definitely tricky because some people do end up trying things that make them worse, like Raf did. You've got to evaluate. Yeah, like I said, you've got to evaluate who's put you on this treatment plan, the efficacy and history of the treatment plan that you're on, how closely your current symptoms align with the expected symptoms of getting worse before getting better, and then also just your innate feelings and not letting like fear and gut reactions dictate your responses, but really checking in and seeing like, okay, am I just afraid of this? Or does this really feel like something is going too wrong? Like, you've got to evaluate all of those things when deciding whether to continue or to end a course of treatment. So that was a good add-in, Raf. Let's see. Jamie had an MRI on the brain. Nika's asking if it showed anything. Let's see. I don't think Jamie responded yet. Hi, Casey. Let's see. Do I think people with chronic illness have low self-worth from having a poor support structure in a societal sense, lack of support from doctors, schoolwork? I think that people with chronic illness can have a low self-worth. My personal opinion and also my personal experience is that if you go into chronic illness with low self-worth, that is going to be exacerbated 100-fold when you develop chronic health issues, and then you're constantly doubted and judged for it and misunderstood for it. I think it really, really makes poor self-esteem, poor self-worth way worse. If you have a very strong sense of self-worth going into chronic illness, I do think it hurts that a little bit, but I feel like in most people it tends to remain intact. So I think a lot of it's context and your level of self-worth and self-esteem going into chronic illness that has a lot to do with it. But I think the factors you mentioned, doctors, schoolwork, everybody misunderstanding you, doubting you, etc., harms it further. Yeah. Oh, and Catherine had an MRI. Raf says that's a lot. Maybe I should increase from an hour to 3 hours. I mean, yeah, Raf, it really comes down to how much energy you have. How big is your energy envelope, and just living within that for as long as you can. Avoiding crashes is typically better for your health than pushing too hard to avoid atrophy, because atrophy is something that happens over the long term. It's a long-term issue, whereas crashes impact you and help contribute to the worsening of the disease in the short term. So we need to prioritize short-term energy over long-term energy sometimes. Yeah, Catherine has Lyme's. Okay, yeah, Raph, if lying flat is more restorative for you, then that's what you need to be doing, bud. I know it's scary and we don't like to atrophy, but atrophy, I feel like for most of us tends to be an issue down here, whereas everything else is an issue up here. Priorities. Catherine says her MRI didn't show anything. Let's see. Okay, Catherine, your doctor did say that you can only expect it to go into remission. So he knows that the antibiotics are not going to completely eliminate the Lyme infection, that this is just about short-term managing it into remission. But it sounds like he or she is saying that there's a possibility that this could come back. Okay, yep. Catherine, I'm glad you're in a Facebook group for the medication you're on. Some people have said it helps, but not everybody. So you're definitely on a journey of like, which category do I fall into? Does this help me or does this not help me? How committed are you to finding out if this helps you or not? Versus, do you feel like you know it's not, or you feel like you're just afraid that it isn't? That can help you evaluate that decision too. Let's see. Oh, I think I'm missing something. I feel like I'm missing some messages in here. I feel like there's a discontinuity in the chat channel for me today, which is weird. Nika was asking what medication made Raph bedridden, and he said IV antibiotics because he got them for chronic Lyme. So Raph, did you or do you have Lyme's disease, or were you misdiagnosed? Because if you were misdiagnosed and put on antibiotics for chronic Lyme's disease when you don't have Lyme's disease, I mean, that could be a huge reason why it made you worse to the point of being bedridden, because, I mean, honestly, technically that would be malpractice. Casey, do I have any book recommendations? For what exactly? I mean, book recommendations for like mindset stuff, book recommendations for like living with ME/CFS or you know, like what aspect of life are you looking for a book recommendation for? Let's see, Raf, talking about the problem last week helped you to maintain discipline. That's great. It gave you some short-term motivation to stay focused and prioritize your energy. I'm so happy. If you guys want to know what Raf is talking about, you can go and watch last week's live Q&A where we did have an adult topic that we talked about. If you're comfortable with that, I invite you to go watch last week's video. And you can actually hop to like minute 20 or 25 or something. That's when we actually get into the meat of it if you don't want to watch the big intro. Let's see. All right, I don't want to leave Casey completely hanging. When it comes to book recommendations, I don't have any book recommendations on healing from ME/CFS personally. I know that there's people I know who recommend the ANS Rewire guy, his program, and I think he also has a book. Dan, thank you, Lisa, for connecting me to Dan, by the way. He has I don't remember what his book is called. I don't think his book is called ANS Rewire, but his program is called ANS Rewire. I would recommend his book. He is on it mindset-wise. He and I are on the same page about the mindset portion of healing from severe chronic fatigue like this. Let's see, books about dealing with the physical aspects of CFS would be preferable, but also anything about raising self-worth. Oh, if you want to raise self-worth, I have the book for you. Okay, it's called How to Raise Your Self-Esteem by my favorite man in life ever. I'm so sad he passed away before I learned about him. Nathaniel Branden. This book changed my life. How to Raise Your Self-Esteem by Nathaniel Branden works wonders. It is full of little activities, little writing, journaling activities, and you have to do all of the activities. There's no point in getting the book and reading the book if you're not going to do every single activity in order as it comes up, because that is where the magic lies. And they are simple to do, very, very simple to do. They don't take any time or thought or struggle or anything like that. It's set up in a way where it's just easy flowing information coming out of you, and you learn so much about yourself, and you really build up that sense of self-esteem and self-worth and self-acceptance and confidence and respect and love and all that good stuff you're after, Casey. Highly, highly recommend it. Nika, my interview with Dan, I don't know when it's going to be published. It's in Dan's hands at this point. He has to edit it and then get it posted, which, you know, he has a full-time job that has nothing to do with ME/CFS, and he has a family and he has other things going on. So like, it's whenever he gets around to it, unfortunately. Okay, Ralph, you're not worried about atrophy after 10 years. You're still kind of muscular. It's a problem when visiting control doctors. I'm not sure what you mean by that. It's a problem when visiting control doctors. The ANS atrophy. I'm not sure what you mean by that. You're welcome, Casey. You know, that was one thing I was pretty shocked. After I healed the first time, you know, I had gone 3 years without entering a gym. 3 years without going to the gym. 3 years of like barely walking. 3 years of spending most of my time on my butt in bed or on a couch. Excuse me. And when I went back to the gym, I was amazed at how much of my strength I had retained. I definitely retained some muscle mass. I'm definitely like muscular for a woman. I definitely carry more muscle mass than your average woman. But in addition to that, like I held on to a lot of strength, which was fantastic. And I don't know if that's typical for everybody or just maybe our body types. But it was really cool to see. It really shone through to me that like strength is really about your neurons and less about your bulk. Because I could atrophy and it seemed like my strength maintained in greater proportion than my muscle mass was retained, which was really interesting to see. You were diagnosed by the lymphocyte transformation test. I gotta look that up because I don't know what that is. It says that the lymphocyte transformation test is used in the diagnosis of drug hypersensitivity. So oh, I see. So you can use the LTT. Well, no, not necessarily. All right, so I'm not making the connection between the LTT and the Lyme's disease, but let's see, Casey, you feel like you've exasperated all your options and you're with trying physical remedies, so you've been trying to focus on what you can do to help your emotional state and rewire my thought process. Casey, I want to hug you. I love that that's your approach. That's exactly what I promote. Like, while you're still looking for the physical things your body needs, control what you can, which is everything inside here, mentally and emotionally. Love your approach. Yeah, I if Nathaniel Brandon helps you a fraction of what he helped me, he'll help you a ton. James was disappointed in the interview because they cut out lots of the insights they had to share and cut it down to 3-minute clips. Oh, that is really short. It's way too short. Well, we'll see. Hey, you too, Casey. Yeah, we'll have to see how the interview comes out. He definitely said it was so long. It's supposed to be an hour, and we ended up talking for 2 hours. He says there's so much content, he wants to break it up into 2 different interviews anyway. And he's kind of slice and dice and piece things together. So that could be why it's taking longer as well. But Dan also said that he wanted to prioritize my interview and get that out because he had like 6 or 7 other interviews in the backlog ready to go. But he liked mine so much he wanted to just get it out there. But we'll see what happens. Let's see. We're coming up. Wow, it's been 1 hour and 11 minutes already. I do need to run because I do have more work I need to get done today. A lot more work I need to do today. I need to finish my workshop I'm leading on Sunday at a yoga studio, which I'm excited about, but it's so much work, insane amount of work. I'm so happy I get to do work like this again. I just am. Feeling gratitude. A light, energy-giving, life-giving emotion, right? All right, guys, this was great today. So happy to see you guys on here and be interacting with you. Let's do it again next week. Same time, next Thursday at 1 p.m. I will have the March schedule of live streams ready for you to go then, where you can go set all your reminders in YouTube so you don't miss a single video. Thanks so much, Casey. Hey, you're giving me your time just as much. So I appreciate you being here and asking some great questions and being a part of our chat. All right, guys. As always, sending you so much love and health. I'm Kristin. Take care. Bye.